Today is Monday, March 7th. We'll tell you about the Ukrainians still promising to fight Russian forces and the ones trying to evacuate, and whether a ceasefire seemed to help at all, and why an American basketball star is detained in Russia. Also, how natural disasters are impacting the country from Iowa to the Florida Panhandle. Plus, new privacy concerns over a popular weight loss app. Imagine fully charging your phone in just 9 minutes. That tech is apparently on its way. And a big boom at the box office. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, unfortunately, we start again with the violent invasion happening in Ukraine. Over the weekend, Russian forces stepped up their attacks on residential areas. Already, more than 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the country since fighting started less than 2 weeks ago. The UN calls this, quote, the fastest growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. And hundreds of thousands more are still trying to escape the fighting. Russian and Ukrainian forces actually agreed to an 11-hour ceasefire in the southern port city of Mariupol, so civilians could evacuate. Well, Ukrainian officials say the Russians just kept attacking, even along the so-called humanitarian corridor. Russian forces also recently struck a Ukrainian military airbase, as well as a commercial airport, making it difficult for Ukrainians to fly out. Ukraine's president is still asking his people to fight in the streets to drive out Russian forces, and many of them are doing just that. Over the weekend, even more volunteers lined up in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv to join the military, and thousands more have come from other countries ready to fight. Because of that, Russia's president is blaming Ukraine for the invasion. International leaders are still calling on Russia to negotiate. Even Pope Francis, in a highly unusual move, sent 2 cardinals to Ukraine to try to end the conflict. A third round of talks between Russian and Ukrainian leaders is planned for today. People all around the world are coming together to protest the war in Ukraine, and that includes people in Ukraine and in Russia. We'll start with the protests in Ukraine. For days now, thousands of people have gathered in the southern port of Kherson. That's the first major Ukrainian region Russia has conquered since the war started. So huge crowds are now calling on Russia to go home. Russian forces reportedly fired their guns into the air and threw flashbang grenades to clear the crowds this weekend, but there were no reports of deaths or injuries. Meanwhile, in Russia, thousands more people turned out in dozens of cities to protest the war. These rallies have been daily in Russia, even though unauthorized protests are illegal there. Well, the demonstrations over the weekend were the biggest yet. Another 4,600 anti-war protesters were arrested in Russia in just one day. More than 13,000 people have been arrested for protesting since last month, even children. There have also been reports of protesters being beaten. And that's not the only way Russia is cracking down on free speech. Russia's government has also banned Facebook and Twitter and shut down other independent media outlets. An American basketball player is now being held in Russia on criminal charges. Russian officials detained 7-time WNBA All-Star and Olympic gold medalist Brittany Griner. Custom officials there say they found vape cartridges in her luggage with hashish oil inside. That's a marijuana concentrate. Over the weekend, Customs released the video of Griner going through airport security and officials checking her bag. But that video was actually taken last month, so Griner may have been in custody for a while now. If she's found guilty of these drug charges, she could end up getting up to 10 years in prison. Her agent says there is an effort underway to get her home, but the U.S. State Department is not giving any specifics. If you're wondering why Griner was in Russia in the first place, it's because many WNBA players actually compete in Russia during the American offseason because the salaries there are more lucrative. Griner has played for a Russian team for several years. Now all WNBA players, besides Griner, are out of Russia and Ukraine. Americans are having to clean up from 2 separate natural disasters. First, several tornadoes tore through central Iowa. They destroyed homes, knocked down trees and power lines, and sent debris flying. And sadly, 7 people were killed, making this the state's deadliest storm in more than a decade. One meteorology professor told the AP the storm likely caused more than $1 billion in damages. More than 1,000 miles away from there, Americans are dealing with a separate threat. Crews are battling at least 4 dangerous wildfires in the Florida Panhandle. People in at least 1,100 homes were told to flee over the weekend, and a nursing home for veterans had to evacuate in Panama City. As of this morning, the biggest fires are less than 50% contained. They've burned through more than 16 square miles and are still growing. A miles-long line of American trucks, RVs, and cars are circling around the nation's capital. This is the American offshoot of Canada's Freedom Convoy, meaning they're protesting COVID-19 restrictions. It started in California and picked up hundreds more drivers as it moved east. And most recently, they've been driving slowly around the Capitol Beltway that surrounds the Washington, D.C. metro, a highway that's already notoriously congested. The drivers are promising a week of traffic disruption. And one of the convoy's organizers says he and other protesters are also hoping to meet with lawmakers tomorrow. They're promising to be peaceful. Still, law enforcement agencies are paying attention, mostly worried that the traffic could get in the way of emergency services. All right, we have more news coming up, but first, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. A lot of us will drop anything to go help someone we care about, right? We'll go out of our way to treat other people well. But how often do we give ourselves that same treatment? So this month, BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you that you matter just as much as everyone else does. And therapy is a great way to make sure you show up for yourself. I know from experience, it's a worthwhile investment. Even when I didn't think things were that bad, I realized that therapy just helps make any situation that much easier to deal with. And really, it made me a better person. BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp Online Therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and the Newsworthy listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/newsworthy. That's BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Well, Russia continues to be a global outcast, with so many businesses leaving the country that it's almost hard to keep up. Heavy hitters like TikTok and Netflix are turning their backs on Russia, with the video sharing app TikTok suspending new content and live streaming there, and Netflix ending its services in protest of the invasion. Plus, 2 top accounting firms pulled out of the country over the weekend, along with American Express, Visa, and MasterCard, which left Russian banks scrambling to turn on a Chinese card system. That's not all. Fashion chain Zara closed down more than 500 stores in Russia. IKEA and Puma closed stores as well, and Microsoft suspended all sales there. Meanwhile, companies still doing business in Russia are facing backlash online, with hashtags like boycott McDonald's and boycott Coca-Cola trending on Twitter. And oil giant Shell is facing some fierce criticism after buying 100,000 tons of heavily discounted oil from Russia. Ukraine's foreign minister even tweeted to Shell asking if Russian oil smells like Ukrainian blood. Shell says it's navigating the dilemma with care and promises to donate the profits to a fund for Ukrainian humanitarian needs. But not everyone thinks American companies pulling out of Russia is the best strategy. An expert on Russian history and politics, who is also the granddaughter of a former Soviet leader, told Showtime's The Circus that cutting off Russia from the rest of the world may actually strengthen Russian President Putin. To be continued. The company best known as Weight Watchers is now facing a $1.5 million fine because the federal government says its app collected information on children. It has to do with the company's free mobile app for kids called Kurbo, which is supposed to help kids ages 8 through 17 keep track of their health goals. The FTC says the app illegally collected sensitive information that violates child privacy acts. Things like names, birthdays, and email addresses, all without the parents' permission. Kurbo's lawyers defended the app, saying it never sold the data to third parties or targeted kids with ads. Still, Kurbo's parent company, WW International, formerly Weight Watchers, agreed to settle the claims and delete any sensitive information it collected, while not admitting any wrongdoing. New record-breaking technology could let your phone fully charge in just 9 minutes. That's reportedly 12 times faster than it takes to charge the iPhone 13. This high-speed flash charge technology comes from Chinese phone maker Oppo and was just unveiled at the Mobile World Congress. The company's product manager says in addition to the high speed, safety is the other top priority. He touted measures that control the voltage and temperature, like sensors that make sure the battery does not overheat when it charges. Experts say Apple and Samsung are already working to follow suit with this kind of technology. But for now, this super fast charging will only be available in Oppo's OnePlus smartphone when it comes out this summer. Amazon is fulfilling its latest experiment tonight. It's streaming the Academy of Country Music Awards in Las Vegas. That's right, for the first time in decades, the ACMs will not air on network TV. CBS refused to renew its contract last year after ratings slipped to an all-time low. Instead, the award show has a new home and will air on Amazon Prime in a sped-up, concert-like format without commercials. It marks the first major award show to live stream exclusively. So if country music is your jam, you can catch it tonight. Dolly Parton is hosting, and there will be more than 20 performances from some of country music's biggest stars. This weekend saw the biggest movie debut at theaters so far this year. The Batman brought in more than $128 million in North America. It was the best opening weekend for any movie since Spider-Man: No Way Home in December of last year. In fact, it blew past industry expectations, with experts thinking Batman's darker material could have hurt its numbers at the box office. The movie has gotten a lot of positive reviews now, but it has its critics as well. TMZ says some Twitter users are calling this caped crusader too political and, quote, woke. By the way, if you left the theater before the Batman credits rolled, without giving away any spoilers, you may have missed a hidden clue in the post-credit scenes. That's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, a message from our sponsor. As part of my morning routine every day, I take 2 capsules of Seed's Daily Synbiotic. I take it on an empty stomach, as they recommend, and I just love how they make me feel. So this is a pre- and probiotic 2-in-1 capsule. There are 24 clinically and scientifically studied strains, the first of its kind. It's for supporting gut health, skin health, it promotes heart health, and more. As someone who cares about my whole body health, I was looking for the best probiotic on the market a while back. I did quite a bit of research, and I actually found Seed before I even partnered with them. And now I'm excited Seed is a sponsor of the show because after taking the Daily Synbiotic for a while, I've noticed the benefits of this product on my health. I am truly impressed. In fact, I even got my husband to start taking these as well. And I love that you can now get a discount. You can get 15% off your first month's supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic by visiting seed.com/newsworthy or by using the code newsworthy at checkout. Again, you can get 15% off your first month's supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic by going to seed.com/newsworthy or use the code newsworthy at checkout. Now back to Money Monday. American households took on $1 trillion in new debt last year, with people shelling out more for homes and cars. That's the biggest spike in 14 years since before the 2008 financial crisis. The New York Federal Reserve said it's mainly because mortgages and cars cost more now. The price of the average American home went up nearly 20% last year, which boosted mortgage balances. The other big factor is the rising prices for new and used cars that drove auto loans to a record. Also, experts say pent-up demand for travel and entertainment had more people swiping their credit cards, with Americans adding $52 billion to credit card debt just in the last 3 months of 2021. But experts say it's not all bad news. Some 87% of all this new debt is tied to homes that can appreciate over time and add to people's wealth. Another note, New York federal economists say the uptick in borrowing is not really surprising because most Americans got ahead during the pandemic, especially the rich. All right, thank you so much for listening today and every day. We'll be back with much more news tomorrow. For now, have a great day.